The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. After John had been arrested, Jesus came to Galilee proclaiming the gospel of God. This is the time of fulfillment. The kingdom of God is at hand. Repent, believe in the gospel. As he passed by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting their nets into the sea. They were fishermen. Jesus said to them, "Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." Then they left their nets and followed him. He walked along a little farther and saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They too were in a boat mending their nets. Then he called them. So they left their father Zebedee in the boat, along with the hired men, and followed him. The Gospel of the Lord. In the first week of Ordinary Time, and we're going to start reading through the letter to the Hebrews. So I wanted to give us a slight introduction to the letter of the Hebrews today. The letter of Hebrews is kind of an interesting book. First of all, we're not exactly sure who wrote it. For much of church history, there was a pretty strong consensus that it was written by St. Paul, and yet it's very different than all of the letters of St. Paul. And so there's been a lot of debate about that. There's also some debate about the dating of the letter of Hebrews, and there's a debate about that with pretty much every book of the New Testament. I happen to think that most New Testament books were written before 70 A.D., for the most obvious reason that none of them actually mention the destruction of the temple, or that it had already taken place. But many modern scholars who are very skeptical of these things, and they try to say that the books were written much later on because they're trying to unauthenticate those writings. So they say, no, they were written many years later and probably weren't written by St. Paul anyway, and people throw all sorts of things at these letters. I don't hold to any of those ideas. I think this was written before 70 A.D. Part of the reason why I say that is because this author of the letter of Hebrews talks a lot about the different rites of the temple, the different animal sacrifices. If the temple had already been destroyed, you would think he would mention that. You would think he would mention how these sacrifices are no longer taking place, and there no longer are these priestly rites in the temple. Now, what is the significant theme of the letter to the Hebrews? The most significant theme is that the person writing this, he's writing it to Jewish people, likely in Jerusalem or in the surrounding area, and he's trying to show them that all of those things that they're doing in the temple, all of those priestly sacrifices and animal sacrifices and different rites, none of them are valid anymore. They've all been replaced. Christ is the one true high priest, and by his sacrifice, he has put an end to all other temple sacrifices. All the temple sacrifices in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, all of them pointed ultimately to the one sacrifice of Christ. And they were foreshadowings of what he did in the Paschal mystery, his death and resurrection. So we'll keep talking about this over the next couple of weeks, but I just want to mention one thing that's very interesting about this theme of the letter to the Hebrews. There's an extra biblical source, not mentioned in the New Testament, but there's something called the Jewish Talmud. Anybody ever heard of the Talmud before? There's the Babylonian Talmud, the Alexandrian Talmud. There are many different Talmuds. Essentially, these were Jewish documents that came up in the centuries following the time of Jesus. Right? So this is after the Bible has already been written. All these different Old and New Testament books have already been written. There were these Jewish documents called the Talmud. And the Babylonian Talmud, it has an interesting story that it recounts about some of the temple sacrifices. So one of the significant temple feasts was the Day of Atonement, which we're going to be hearing a lot about in the letter to the Hebrews. And the Talmud describes some of the rites that took place during the Day of Atonement. One of the things that would happen during the Day of Atonement is that there would be 2 goats that would be brought into the temple. And one of them ended up being sacrificed, and the other one was set free and was essentially pushed off of a cliff. It's where we get the word scapegoat from. It's believed that that goat represented the sins of the people being taken off and taken away. And I could go a lot more into the details of the rite, but essentially, what the Talmud says is that whenever that scapegoat was walked off of a cliff, there was a cord that was hanging in the temple. And that cord was the color scarlet. It was red. And when that goat would walk off the cliff, that rope would miraculously turn white. This is what the Talmud says, this Jewish document. The same Jewish document says that about 40 years before the temple was destroyed, that cord stopped changing color. The miraculous change stopped. Why? Again, the Talmud doesn't say this, but you and I know why. It's because that sacrifice was no longer valid. It was replaced once and for all by the sacrifice of Christ around 40 years before the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. Please remain seated as the altar is prepared.